Hello. Okay, hello everybody. And if you can hear me, could you please raise your hands? There is a hand button, and you can press this button to show me that you can hear me and you can see the screen. Okay, I see a lot of hands up. So now you can press the button again to put your hands down, and we will start our webinar. So, my name is Tetyana Šelепko. I'm Cambridge University Press ELT consultant, and today we will talk about how we practice the language at English lessons. And before we start, if you have any question, you can write in the Q&A box or questions box. Unfortunately, there is no general chat for everybody, so yeah, sorry for that. And hello, I can see a lot of hellos. Yes, the webinar is recorded and you will get the recording at the end, but okay, wait a little bit. I will talk about it right at the beginning. I'm sorry that you can't see me. It's due to some technical problems, but I'm sure the screen and the voice will be enough. So, what are the aims of this webinar? We will talk about how children learn English as the second language, how to develop confident, autonomous learners and get them to use the language, how to motivate learning through practice. We will look at some activities, and I will give you a few recommendations. And we will see what's new at Cambridge University Press and the Lingvist publishing in terms of the new Ukrainian school. Before we get to the aims of this webinar, let's discuss the question of the certificates. You will all receive the certificate. It will look like this, and a few points about how it works. Certificates are generated by the platform automatically. There will be your name and surname in the way you registered. So we don't put your name, surname there. It's when you were registering. If you put there a question mark, there will be a question mark. If you put there your name and surname, it will be fine. There will be the topic, the date, and 1 hour stated that you attended 1 hour of this webinar. You will receive thank you letters with the certificates to download and the video recording of this webinar. What does it mean, certificate to download? There will be a blue button. When you press this blue button, you will be redirected to your certificate. It takes usually about 1 hour to receive the thank you letters. And if you see that you didn't receive it in 1 hour, it might take up to 2 weeks because of the amount of participants. Usually 100 people receive it at once, and then it can spread in a few days or even weeks. Then your certificate might get into the junk emails, so be sure to check junk email box as well. And some information again before we start. We are now in the middle of organization of the Better Learning Conference this year, and a little bit what is Better Learning. This is a huge event, and it's one of the most prestigious events in ELT. This year, Kyiv was chosen to host the Better Learning Conference, the first time in Europe, apart from Cambridge. I mean, before that, it was only possible to visit this conference in Cambridge. This year, the 5th and the 6th of June, Better Learning Conference will take place in Kyiv, right in the middle of the city. And what is going to happen there? 5 experts from Cambridge will give their talks, not only one, but a few talks from 5 experts, workshops from them. Also, there will be best Ukrainian experts. There will be parallel sessions, so you will be able to choose where to go. It will be 2 days of not only theory or lectures, but also a great amount of practical activities and workshops. There are also 2 types of tickets, premium and standard ticket. I will talk about it a little bit more at the end of the webinar when if we see that we have time for it. So let's finally get to the topic of our webinar, how children learn English as the second language. You know that children start anything with imitation. This is how they learn things. This is how they are modeling their behavior first. And then, okay, sorry, we have some technical problems. Can't hear the webinar. All right. Does anybody else have the problem with the sound? Can you type in the questions box? Does anybody have the problem with the sound? No problem. No. Okay, everything is fine, so I will just okay, I see. Thank you very much. No problems. There are a few people writing that they can't hear. Okay, sorry for that. All right. Where did we stop? So yes, children are imitating, and starting learning anything at the very early age is the best, because they don't feel strange, they don't feel ashamed or shy when they imitate, because this is their normal behavior. And learning a new language, learning any language, is the normal behavior of any child. And we have to consider that the more we speak English, the more will be imitated by kids. So any classroom language, any language to express their needs should be done in English. Natural acquisition versus program point. It's good to start learning English and teaching English, of course, in early age with kids, because this time they remember the phrases. They don't know how language works yet. They, of course, are trying to find the associations with their own language, but mostly the only strategy they use to learn the language is the same strategy they were using to learn the first language. And they are free of trying to learn English through the grammar-based textbooks. They are, okay, no, there is no chat. It was said at the beginning of the webinar that there is no chat, unfortunately. There is only question box. Sorry. Okay. So it's much easier to learn the language for young learners than for teenagers, because they are free of the blocks and they are not trying to compare it with any fact they have. So their background knowledge to start learning English is the strategy of how they acquired their first language, and they will try to do it the same way. And yeah, talking about learning strategies. Okay, I'm sorry. No, there are no problems with the connection. So we are keeping up. I'm sorry, there might be some technical issues with the connection. And yes, all right. There are a few great questions like this one. Children use Ukrainian sounds instead of English sounds, and how to work with that. I will keep this question a little bit for further slides, and if you have questions, I will ask you to type them at the end of the webinar, so if we don't stop every time for answering. Okay, thank you very much. So at the end of the webinar, we will work on all of your questions. Yeah, so they use learning strategies and they use their background problem. And by the way, yes, that might be their background knowledge. There might be a problem with their background knowledge because they are trying to use what they already know, especially to read. When they see a letter and they are trying to refer this letter to their first language, and this problem might occur in the moment of reading. So I will come to this question very soon. And how children learn the language and how it becomes their own, and how it becomes something they can use to communicate, but not just the set of songs and chants. This is done through sharing activities with adults. So any language, any language, by any language I mean their first language, how they learn it. They first see the facial expression, then they understand what is going on. They see some activity, for example, they are having lunch together, yeah, the family is eating, so they might understand, they learn the language through this activity, but not vice versa, first language and then activity. It might be, but understanding of the language comes only after they had some activity and it was a repetitive one. And yeah, it's important to to motivate students, and of course parents are important in this moment. And in this picture you can see very well, so where does the teacher get this? Wilbur shows no motivation in class, and there is Dad lying on a couch and doing nothing, showing no motivation. Of course, everything comes from the family, and it means that we might need to work with parents as well, sometimes even more than with kids in our free time, and that happens a lot. But still, let's think about it at the next slide. So, what are the stages of learning English? There is silent period. I was mentioning before that students first see the facial expression, they see a non-verbal way of communication, they understand this non-verbal way of communication. After that, they begin to speak, and not usually understanding what exactly they are saying. And beginning to speak is imitating the language their parents or their relatives are using. Then they are building the language. So if they start using the language they heard to express their own needs and in communication, or their own maybe even physical needs. Okay. Sorry. Okay, fine. Yeah, if we're talking about stages of learning English, again, this is silent period is the period when students are listening rather than reading or speaking, of course. And it's always like this. So listen before you read, read before, listen before you speak, speak before you read, and read before you write. This is a very important sequence, because if we start with reading at once, that's where the problem might occur with the sounds. When students will try to put Ukrainian sounds instead of English sounds. Or it, of course, might happen if someone was teaching English before that, yeah, to these kids, and we will have to work with their fossilizations. But anyway, in perfect world, first, there is the silent period where students listen as much as possible to your good English, to a lot of audio tracks, songs, chants, phonics and so on. When they begin to speak, they need to imitate the live language already, maybe with the phrases, some very simple small phrases. And after that, they will use these phrases. They will try to replace one word with another word. They will try to replace, for example, if they are listening to the introduction unit where there are heroes, yeah, my name is Flash. They will try to replace Flash with their own name, understanding what exactly is meant in this phrase. And to continue with, when they build up a few phrases, that's where the understanding moment is coming. They start not only understanding the meaning of the phrase, but also how the language works, that it's different from Ukrainian language, and that this is not something that where they can use analogical thinking with replacing letters or replacing words. They understand, they begin to reconcile the languages. And very often in this moment, the frustration comes, especially with the kids who have a lot to say, but they don't have enough language to express themselves. And in this frustration moment, it's important to give them some short phrases for showing what they can do. For example, I can count to 10 in English. And it can be even a chant. I can count to 10 in English, or something very simple, and I'm sure you know how to do it. So they can tell their parents what they can do. They can tell each other what they can do and ask each other. And in this frustration, it's important to point out what they achieved during a lesson, what they achieved in the last year, and what they can achieve progressing as they are. Sorry. Mistakes. This is the very tricky thing. I've recently watched a wonderful shortcut, and I would love to show this short film to you, but unfortunately there are a few swear words, so I decided not to. But if you're interested, look at it. This is called Alternative Maths. Like, it's about mathematics teacher and there is a child who completed his test, and he got F for his test, which is 2, yeah, but you know, we don't have marks in Ukrainian school, but that was mathematics, so somehow they had the marks, the child would say that 2 plus 2 is 22, and 3 plus 2 is 32. And the teacher gave him a bad mark and then said, this is wrong. The child said, no, this is just alternative. This is different. You can't be such a totalitarian. And he rejected to accept that 2 plus 2 is 4. He decided it's 22 and that's it. And then all the story begins. Parents come to school and accuse the teacher of being totalitarian and only having only one point of view and making everybody work with that point of view. And then the principal comes to the teacher saying that there is issue with the problems, so we're gonna fire you. And then the media comes, and then this problem is a huge world problem, and the teacher is sitting at home watching TV and saying that, come on, 2 plus 2 is 4. This is math. This is not just my point of view. And at the end, the ending is really funny. So I recommend you watching this shortcut. I will not tell you by the end. It's called Alternative Maths. And again, so yeah, this is a tricky moment with mistakes. Of course, we shouldn't point out that, oh, you made a mistake, let's correct this mistake. This is really demotivating. And as I was saying a lot of times before in previous okay. I'm sorry. Is everything okay? Can you hear me again? Yes. There is the white screen. Let me. Okay. Okay, fine. I'm sorry for these technical issues. I think it's something with the connection. I hope it will not repeat. So yeah, talking about mistakes, it is important to to point out the success and the achievement. And if we're talking about how to do the error correction, this should be done in the way of, because of course there is actually one correct and one acceptable way of let's say pronunciation, but everybody has individual features, right? And there are different accents. But still, if we hear the Ukrainian accent, that's a little bit not what we are aiming at. We can, if your students do the American accent or British accent, this is much better than the Ukrainian accent because it brings them closer to the language and further from their own language, so they can reconcile it. But yes, we have to correct the mistake, but not stopping the conversation, but maybe asking the questions, parroting your students. For example, if the student says, I go to school yesterday, we should say, oh, you went to school yesterday. And this will let your students remember that there is something wrong in his way of saying, and he will just get used to how it should be correct. I'm sorry for this connection issue. Well, it says it's fine. Okay, let's continue. There is also gender differences, and we need to remember that, okay. We need to remember that girls learn a little bit faster than boys in this age, and they get they become grown-ups a little bit faster than boys. But at the same time, boys have very different kind of thinking, and here where this individual approach comes, we need to understand that, but not only think that you're boys, you're bad at studying. Okay. Again, no sound. Let me check. Hello? No, I checked it. The sound is fine. So check your settings if something is going wrong. Learning environment, it is it is an important thing, and we will come to it at the next slide. And yeah, why actually I have the bad sound? Because now I am in Romania, and the connection, internet connection, is a little bit worse than in Ukraine, and maybe just here. And so what I wanted to say with this moment, I came here without knowing the language, and yeah, I'm already here for the third week without knowing the language, communicating mostly in English, or maybe if there are some people who know Ukrainian or Russian, I talk to them in this language, but mostly English. However, everybody around is using Romanian all the time, and especially in the shops, wherever I go, I hear it. And to tell you the truth, that in 3 weeks, I already start understanding, not knowing words at all. And we are working here in the theater, and they finally gave me the text, and reading the text, but having the English version in mind, I understood each word, what it meant. So having The sound is great. Okay, thank you. So having some experience silently and having a lot of income at the beginning made it really easy to start reading, and this is a used and checked technique. So yeah, something from my own experience. And moving on. We get to reading again only after we had some a lot of oral experience, and it's much better to read the word when you already know this word perfectly and understand this word perfectly. Then you can get to reading the words, but that's in very early age, yeah, at the first grade. And parent support. Here is another funny picture for you. It is important to also work with parents and in different ways try to explain them that it is also their job to educate their children, and to if they want their children to learn the language, they shouldn't say that this is very hard, that they couldn't learn English at school when they were children and they regret it. Yeah, this is where the demotivation in learning starts, from parents usually who didn't learn the language and say that this is a very difficult thing, and a lot of it requires a lot of energy. This is natural thing to learn, and we need to activate parents in this way. Yeah, at least not to say that this is difficult, not to say to their children that not to make a lot of pressure. Yeah, learn English because you will need it in future. For kids in the first and second grade, this is absolutely unimportant what they will need in future. They want to have fun with their peers at the lessons. How to develop confident and autonomous learners and get them to use the language. So first of all, we start with the environment. We need to show our kids what outcome they will get from the lesson. We need to set the goal and show them what will be the product, what the product of their learning will be, and how they can succeed. In terms of what they think success is, they need to think how they should progress through the lesson to get this success, to achieve this success. Okay. And yeah, again, we also need to understand that there are different students with different ways of learning and with different ways of how they can be motivated. So we can use it to maybe sometimes bribe them or trick them. And you can see another picture. Yeah, think of it as you're reading a long text message, not a book. So the modern kids are a little bit different from us, and we need to find the ways, starting with our own role model. We need to be motivated for learning new things in English, learning new things in methodology, and that's when our students will be motivated as well. And Stephanie Diamond Bayer also suggests such ways of developing confident and autonomous learners. She says that we need to establish what learners are going to learn. For example, show them a picture at the start of the lesson point so learners can try to say the words, and then show pictures from a story to ask what might happen before listening or reading. We shouldn't correct students at this point because, again, this is demotivating. We can correct them only when we have the controlled practice moment. Then, yeah, we need to be positive and take any opportunities. At the end of the task, we come back to this picture, repeat the activity, allowing learners to try to explain, like we had here, what might happen, but they try to explain this picture again using the new language, and they will see how they succeeded. And it is important from you to praise them, so they will use these words again. And make sure you find opportunities, to praise your students, encourage the less confident learners to contribute the simpler language or point when they hear it as you check answers. During the lesson, see how confident learners are, and Stephanie suggests making red and green flags using cardboard, straws and sticky tape, and encourage students to wave green flag if they can do the task, and red flag if they need more help from you. And we need to praise each student and to also not to forget the try again points, but not saying them that they are wrong. We need to ask them to try again. And we need to develop the self-reflection ability of student, so let them keep the record of their learning, to decorate the tasks they completed, add pictures, make labels with new words or new sentences which they can have in their box. And there are many classroom management things and ways you can you can do this. So yeah, how to motivate students through practice. I'm sorry, someone's writing. Okay, just a second. Okay, I will check the connection once again, sorry. All good. Okay, maybe you didn't hear because I wasn't speaking for a while. Sorry. Okay, how to motivate learners through practice. Let's look at the next slide, and here I will tell you a little bit about the new study from Cambridge University Press and the Department of Psychological Studies. So here we had a wonderful, how to say, wonderful study on of the new of the first grade students, and okay, once again something happened. Sorry. No, all fine. So, yes, there was a study held in different schools where students started using Cambridge materials, and what was in this study? They analyzed language proficiency. So how much did students improve their English throughout the semester using Cambridge materials, how their motivation grew, and how which teaching and learning methods were the most effective. And what they did in this study, the first thing they did, they asked students to draw a picture of their English lesson. Okay, no sound. Let me check again. All right, moving on. So they asked students to draw the lesson of English at the very first lesson, and most of the pictures were black and white, and very schematic. So there were a few lines, a few dots, a few circles, desks, and that's it. So that's how students drew the very first picture. At the end of the semester, they asked students to draw a picture of their English lesson again, and those were juicy, beautiful pictures with a lot of colors, with a lot of activities, and with their favorite heroes from the books. And a lot, of course, was dependent on the teacher's motivation. Yeah, if the teacher likes the material, the students will also do that, and this motivation is contagious. So you can see how their language developed throughout the semester, and you can also see how the environment grew, how students, you see, mostly they enjoyed the stories. Then we have songs and other things you can see in the colors. To find out more about this study, you can visit our Cambridge blog. I will tell you more at the end of the webinar about this blog. And yes, finally, activities. Let's look at them, because we might be out of time before we are ready to finish. So talking about activities, it is important to understand how much time the practice should take during the lessons. And you can see that we have practicing control or consolidation stage, which we are used to call the practice stage. This is one of 4 different stages. So there should be the discovery or presentation, and there should be the use or production stage, as we used to call it before. Okay, I'm sorry if the sound is bad. Please check your settings with the sound, and unfortunately the connection might be not very good, but from my side the connection is perfect. and the sound is working. So if you have some issues, please check the settings of your computer and be sure that you're using the wire for the internet. Sorry. It might work not very well with the Wi-Fi. And yeah, I've made such a pie. So here we can see that this amount of the lesson we take for goal setting and reflection of students, for giving feedback and getting feedback from students. This is the moment when we present the new language, and we call it the imitation moment, when students do the chance, learn the new words, see new words for the first time. This is the moment where we practice everything using activity books or activities from the pupils' books. And this is the moment where the students should use the language. So these are different communicative activities, projects, and so on. And we still have 10 minutes. So I will show you these activities very fast. I'm sorry if I don't answer your questions right now. And yeah, here is the moment of the presentation of new language, where we use pupils' book with teacher's notes, using the flashcards and so on. And then we move at some point to the activity book. And here we can see this kind of exercise. And before that, at the pie, I showed you that the practice should take about 25%. So students will complete that most probably very fast if the language was presented well in the presentation stage. And you just match everything from you match the words with the pictures, and that's it. This practice is kind of not enough, and we need to move a little bit from here to more autonomy of students, and that's why we have a lot of optional activities in teacher's book. For example, you take the flashcards. Then students get into groups, and they point to an object and tell each group to make a label of the word. And then you can stick these labels to all the objects and so on. So this activity requires higher thinking skills a little bit, but also it requires more use of the language. And another great activity taken from Olga Madilu's blog, some of you might know Olga Madilus. So this activity is called the tennis balloon, or balloon tennis. What you have to do: blow up one balloon, divide the class into teams. Once the students have got used to the game, you organize them in smaller groups of 2 teams each. Each group needs a balloon, but consider the space you have available. You can also go and play at the playground in this game. One team starts with a member hitting the balloon across to the opposite team, and at the same time shouting so everybody can hear one word. Next, a member of the opposition team has to hit the balloon back, shouting a different word. If no one can think of a new word or repeats a word that has already been said, the team loses the point, and this encourages learners to listen carefully to each other. If the balloon drops to the floor, the receiving team loses the point. You can also score this game like tennis, and you can change the lexical set whenever you need. Originally, Olga Madilus wrote this activity for food vocabulary. Another ideas that you can also find at Anne Robinson. blog, which require choice and challenge, I took for word search level up activity. So Anne Robinson says that students don't only have to read and understand the word. You can also encourage them to count how many words are there in the sentence. What's your favorite word in the topic? How many letters are there in the word? How many letters are there? Okay, and this is a question for the word search. How many letters are there here? Yeah, but this is quite a big one, so consider whether students can count that. And yeah, this activity is inspired by Anne Robinson's blog, Teaching Together Info. I will give you the links at the end of the webinar. And yeah, how to level up this activity. Set the time limit with the send clock, for example, so students see how much time they have. They work in pairs, and they make their own word search activity for the team of the opponents. Then they need to count and note all the words they've put into this word search activity, and they make the game, they exchange and try to complete each other's games. It is important so students count everything, and then they cipher their words in the word search, and they feel so important and so smart that they are creating their own ELT material and become like a teacher for another team. So this might be really engaging activity for your students. There is also another activity called Play, also taken from Olga Madilo's blog, but there she has pizza. The task is here to give each student a paper plate, let them draw their breakfast or lunch, or as Olga Madilos says, their pizza, what they put on their pizza, and then they can compare it with partners or organize a gallery walk. So you hang all the plates on the walls, and students walk around and decide which breakfast they would like to have instead of their own breakfast. Also, we recommend for more practice using Super Grammar together with Quick Minds 1 and 2. Super Grammar activities are not only grammar, but mostly they are language practice for using structures. So these are not tables, but more practice. Fun for starters, story fun, the first and the second book go together with Home Fun booklet, can be also useful for your lessons for additional practice. And what's new at Cambridge University Press? I was already mentioning the Better Learning Conference, which will take place in Kiev in June on the 5th and 2nd. And I told you about two types of tickets. There is premium and standard ticket. You can see the prices on the slide. And talking about the speakers at this conference, there will be Matt Ellman. Matt Ellman is a great teacher trainer and Cambridge University Press teacher trainer who travels all over the world teaching teachers, and he's really great and motivating and inspiring. Ben Knight, I got to get acquainted to him this year, and this is an incredible man who can tell you a lot about life skills and how they work, because he's actually one of the creators of Cambridge University of Cambridge framework for life skills. Dr. Johnny Holmes is a great expert in psychology and in the field of how brain works, and she can tell you also a lot about teaching and language acquisition. Ben Goldstein is the author of Eyes Open, the course that got the license from the Ministry of Science and Education of Ukraine this year. Eyes Open is one of the most motivating courses developed together with Discovery Education, and Ben Goldstein is one who made it. And Scott Thornbury, wonderful teacher, wonderful author, the author of several textbooks and handbooks for teachers at Cambridge University Press, and lots of new materials. And he's the first time in Kiev, actually in Ukraine this year, and he's really enthusiastic about visiting Kiev and working with Ukrainian teachers. Also, I would note that this is not only the conference for Ukrainian teachers. This is a conference for Eastern Europe, where a lot of teachers from other countries will be. This is supposed to be the video of Scott Thornbury inviting you to the conference, but I will skip it. You might want to see it on our Facebook page. Here is the program finally available. Also, you can find it fast on Facebook. And more information you can get from training.linguist.ua. You will be provided with the link in your thank you letter. And what's new about Cambridge? There is also a wonderful YouTube channel which finally started working with the new teachers who were competing for this right to present for Cambridge YouTube channel, and there are videos already at this channel, so check them out. What's new at Lingvist Publishing? There is Quick Minds, the first and the second level, with all the materials available: a pupils book, activity book, teachers book, audio, flashcards, teachers resource book, and online application, which is for free, and you can find it at Lingvist Publishing website. There are also new editions developed for teachers who were saying the whole year that there is not enough reading, there is not enough practice material, and they always want more. And usually these are the teachers who inspire publishers to make more. And that's why we have a super alphabet book, super dictionary book, and super puzzles book. The two latter editions are for both levels, and they are in very affordable prices or available from your Lingvist company sales manager. Also, we started developing quick notes that you can download for free. And if you have any suggestions or questions about the book and what should you do in this or that activity, please fill out the form and we will create a quick note for you. You will be able to download it for free and use it at your lessons. These are some useful links that you will receive in your thankful letter that were used in this webinar. A little bit again about the certificates. You will get them according to the way you registered with your name, surname. You will get them automatically from the platform, not from me, not from somebody else, but from the platform where the webinar is happening. There will be the topic, the date, and it will be stated that you took 1 hour of the webinar. You will receive thank you letters with the certificate to download and video recording of this webinar. And this process might take not more than 2 weeks. Usually it's only 1 hour. In 1 hour after the webinar, you might already get your certificate or later. and be sure to check your junk email folder as well, not only the incoming mails. And all the information I was mentioning, you can find at our Cambridge University Press ELT Ukraine page on Facebook. You can also find a lot of useful information at our cambridge.org website. Be sure to check if this is Ukraine here when you register. And here you can find materials about young learners, secondary learners, and there is also a blog with lots of useful materials and worksheets, resources, articles, and great insights. These are my contact details. If you want to ask me anything, please do that via email or Viber for the next 2 weeks. And you will be able to reach me over the phone in 2 weeks. These are the contact details of the Lingvist company, which is the official distributor of Cambridge University Press in Ukraine. Thank you very much. If you're still here, I will look at some questions you had.